I'm hoping that when this is all said and done, we kind of realize that it's our desire to have dollar menu chicken is the reason that this virus exists and people are dying because of that. I mean, I know it's kind of that's a big jump for people to accept that or to think that, but it's really true. If we went back to, I mean, of course, for health reasons, this is, I'm not advocating for, everybody on the planet to be whole food plant-based.
I am.
Yeah, that would be great. But I guess because I've been in healthcare for 25 years and seen tens of thousands of patients, I'm a realist as well.
Are you ready to live the life you deserve? Do you want to feel vibrantly healthy and reach your optimal weight without dieting while being kind to animals and the planet? Then you're in the right place at the right time. Get ready to hear from doctors, nutritionists, experts, and everyday men and women committed to creating a powerful life in mind, body, and soul through ethical food choices. Welcome to Plant-Based Eating for Health with your host, certified plant-based nutritionist, Kathleen Gage.
Well, I am really excited today to have a man that has done some amazing things in the Eugene, Oregon area. His name is Scott Wagnon, and I first met Scott probably about a year or so ago when I attended one of his classes, Food as Medicine. And it was shortly after I started my plant-based living lifestyle. And when I first started, I wasn't too sure if I was going to stick with it. I thought I'll give it a try for 7 days. 7 days turned into 14, 14 turned into 28, and the rest, as they say, is history. And I had gone in for my annual physical. I was about 4 months into plant-based eating, went for my annual physical, and I was talking to my doctor about what I was doing that made my numbers so good. And she said, you have to connect with Scott Wagnon. He is with Oregon Medical Group. He's teaching classes on food as medicine. He's the plant-based expert. And amazingly, I had already heard about his classes, so I showed up and went through the full 13 weeks. It was a free training that he was offering. And Scott, I'm going to let you tell people about it, but I think when you first started, you had a few people trickle in, and then it got so big that you had to split up the classes. But Scott is a physician assistant at Oregon Medical Group. He has been in the medical profession for decades. He has been a professional bicyclist. I'm going to let him share more about that. He's got an amazing wife who went plant-based, and she actually reversed a lot of her medical conditions. She dropped a ton of weight, literally a lot of weight. Scott, I know you dropped a lot of weight. So with that, I just want you to, I want to welcome you here and share a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Sure. Yeah. So I was born and raised in the Eugene area, and wife and 2 grown sons have now married and have pets. No children, so no grandkids for us, but we have a grand kitty and a grand dog, basically, and that's fine with us. My career in medicine started when I went to paramedic school. I moved up to the Portland area to go to a 2-year paramedic program. And then I worked as a paramedic for 10 years up in the Portland area. And that was back in the 90s during kind of the gun and knife club, Portland gang kind of area. But during that process, I was learning more about medicine. I was contemplating becoming a firefighter because in Eugene, to be a paramedic, you have to be a firefighter. So I was kind of going that route, thinking that way. But then I was learning more about medicine. I was more interested in medicine. So then I decided to go to PA school. And that was a long journey to get there. And I went to OHSU, graduated 2005. Then I went right into community health. And then I kind of was doing a lot of different things. I was worked in pain management, urgent care, did a little sports medicine, kind of a lot of different areas, which is one of the benefits of being a PA. You can do a lot of different things. But then when I was having trouble with my health and my background, as you mentioned earlier, I used to be a professional bicycle racer. I raced on a team in Spain, I spent some time over there, went to Olympic trials in '88. So I was always a really, health conscious, professional level athlete. So I kind of was, as I was kind of not racing anymore, but still doing a lot of bicycle riding, I was noticing, gosh, my weight's really going up. I'm kind of got a belly on me. my cholesterol was creeping up, my blood pressure was creeping up. I was in the pre-diabetic range on my labs. And so I was, which kind of dumbfounded by that, because I was exercising a lot. Like part of my story is in the year 2012 is when I rode my bicycle 7,000 miles that year. Yet I still had all those health problems. So then that's what kind of made me go, wow, I need to look at the food I'm eating, because it's not lack of exercise. I felt like, I was getting good sleep, low stress, a good relationship. I felt like my lifestyle was good, was healthy, but obviously the food part is what I didn't have right. So kind of, you can probably tell from my background, I don't do anything kind of half-heartedly. I, really high professional, level of athletics, and everything I do, I really kind of go all in on it. And so, and my wife can attest to this, that I dove into nutritional science. I got to learn about food, about nutrition. And during that process, I really learned, wow, I should be eating a mostly whole food, plant-based diet, because I knew that could reverse heart disease, the number one killer. And what I was seeing every day in the clinic was what this could actually prevent and reverse if I adopted it myself. So I kind of made myself test case number one, and I started making those changes for myself. And after a year of doing so, I dropped 46 pounds, dropped my cholesterol 100 points, my blood pressure dropped like a rock, and my prediabetes resolved. And so I was applying it to patients. And at the time when I was doing this, I was working in urgent care, still up in the Portland area. I was working urgent care, and it was kind of a slower, kind of a startup urgent care. And so the doctor that I was working with was open to letting me, if you want to bring patients in, you happen to see them for suturing up a laceration or seeing them for a sore throat or something. If you want to bring them back in to teach them about what you're learning in your nutrition with food as medicine, feel free, because it brings in more revenue, because people would come back to see me. So obviously that wasn't a very good setting. The urgent care wasn't really a setting to deal with chronic disease management and using food as medicine, but I was just sharing it however I could with patients. And that's kind of when I started to develop kind of because I've never been an educator as a background, but I was starting to do that with patients. And that was at the time when, okay, I need to get back to primary care. This is the better setting. And that's what led me to, my wife and I decided to move back to Eugene. We were still in the Portland area at the time. And so then I got the job at Oregon Medical Group. Now it's been 5 years. So that's what prompted me to move back down to Eugene, start working in internal medicine. And I started really rolling it out with patients. Now it's been over 600 plus patients I've taught it to one-on-one. And I estimate about 700 different people have come through my food as medicine classes. And what prompted me to teach the classes were a couple of different factors. So I was filling up my schedule with patients that, doctors from outside of Oregon Medical Group were sending me patients, cardiologists, people from all over the community were sending me patients to do. I had a set of 5 appointments that I would do with patients, where I'd take them through how to adopt a whole food plant-based diet, and I'm starting to integrate more lifestyle medicine factors now that I'm board certified in lifestyle medicine, doing a lot of that. But what was happening, it was filling my schedule so much that the organization was like, well, you don't have very many slots left open for the kind of the routine stuff that's coming through. And so they were kind of being concerned that I was filling up too many of my slots. And so they said, okay, you need to just limit it to the people in your clinic, at your team, as far as doing your formal appointments. And so a lot of the doctors, like your doctor, for example, was like kind of upset that she couldn't send me patients anymore. And so that's when I decided to teach the free classes. And also that was also catalyzed by Dr. Charlie Ross. I kind of touched base with him, and I was going out to his classes on Tuesdays out in Oak Ridge. And so then I started going to his classes, and between what the alternative model was going to be was, okay, for these people that are outside of my team, I can offer these free classes for them to come to. And then that was about the time Dr. Ross was like, oh, you should do a class here in Eugene. That'd be great. And so he kind of encouraged me, and I taught a couple of his classes when he was away on vacation out in Oak Ridge, and that kind of, okay, I can do this. And so then, from day one, actually my very first class, I had almost 80 people for the very first class that were there. And that was when I just did it one day every other week. And so we were getting numbers, in the 70s to 80s, and it was really tightly packed in there. And then we started offering the 2 nights, Wednesday and Thursday, every other week. And then it got to where the one week I had 150 people. We had 70 plus both Wednesday and Thursday. So I've had as many as 150 for a week. And then, sometimes around the holidays, certain times of the year, it's down around for the combined 2 classes, somewhere around 40 to 50. So it's usually been 40 to 50 to 100 plus. And so it's been really well received.
Well, let's talk about the benefits of a plant-based eating protocol, because when I first started, I had no idea what types of improvements I would actually myself experience. And when I first went to your class, I think I had dropped about 23 pounds. I'm down about 35 pounds now without dieting. And the thing that I love is, one, it wasn't a focus on losing weight. It really was a focus on, as I get older, I wanted to minimize my risk of being in that number 1 killer, which is heart disease and cancer and diabetes, all of those. And I remember Dr. Miller at one point a few years ago, I had gained a considerable amount of weight. I was about 60 pounds heavier than I am right now. And she said, okay, here's the deal. She goes, you're a walking heart attack, you're a walking stroke. She goes, it's going to happen anytime, and we're going to put you on meds. And at that time, I said, well, let me take care of this. I'll lose some weight. And I went on a crash diet. And of course, we go on crash diets, we gain it all back. And it does wreaks havoc on our body. But let's talk about the real benefits, the initial benefits that somebody will experience by going on a plant-based protocol. And then I want to talk about the myths that all of us hear, like the protein and all that. So let's start with benefits.
Yeah. So, I think how I teach it to patients is, you can go all in. I always tell people, it's kind of a lot of it's the Dr. Greger philosophy, which is teaching anybody anything less than what the balance of the evidence supports is patronizing. It's like to tell somebody, well, just go on a Mediterranean diet. And I was more familiar with the Mediterranean diet. A lot of medical providers are, especially cardiologists. It's like, well, okay, so the Mediterranean diet's been shown to slow the progression of heart disease, but we know there's a protocol of whole food plant-based which can reverse heart disease. So why would you teach someone a diet that could slow the progression of a disease when you have a protocol that could reverse the disease or prevent it? And so so what I teach patients is, I'll teach you in my classes, whether it's in my classes or one-on-one, I'm going to teach you how to do a 100% whole food plant-based diet, because you deserve that. You deserve the best that the science has to offer. Whether you do it 100%, that's up to you. I leave that up to you, but here's how you can do it. So I know your listeners probably already know what a plant-based diet is, but it's a diet based on fruits and vegetables, starchy vegetables, beans, potatoes, sweet potatoes, intact whole grains, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, and then eliminates the animal products, the meat, the cheese, the eggs, the dairy products, the oils, the processed food, all that kind of stuff. So, but I would be a hypocrite if I said, well, I went 100% from day one. I didn't. I transitioned over about a year, and that's what worked for me. And that's my health goals were I'm going to go in that direction and for health reasons. But, someone that just had a heart attack, a bypass or a stent, hey, I'm going to really try to tell them the benefits of going all in on it. And so however much, it depends on what each person's health goals are. Is your health goal to mainly lose weight? Is it to get off your blood pressure medication, your cholesterol medicine, reverse your diabetes, get off your insulin? I always try to figure out what what the reason for change is and what their health goals are, and then tailor it that way. But even though I'm going to teach them how to do it 100%, the benefits are, preventing reversing heart disease, prevent and reverse diabetes, people with autoimmune diseases, it can put them into remission, decrease inflammation. It's an anti-cancer type of a diet. It's going to be good for every system in your body, because blood, we know that, a lot of times in medicine, we're taught to compartmentalize the body, the systems, the organs. Oh, do this do this little tweak because it's good for your liver. Do this tweak because it's good for your joints. No, if the blood goes anywhere, it goes everywhere. So everything that you're doing with eating a whole food plant-based diet is going to improve every system in the body, and everything is related.
Well, let me ask you this. We're right at the beginning. We don't know if we're in the middle, beginning, or end of the COVID-19. I mean, the reality is I think we have a long road ahead of us. And they have identified that early on, the people that were being impacted the most were the ones that had underlying causes, which, health issues that we deal with in our country. We are a very fat society. We're an obese society. We are a very diabetic inclined society. And so in light of what's going on with COVID-19, is there any documented information that it can actually help by going plant-based with minimizing your risk with contracting the virus?
So I think we could definitely apply it to the immune system. We know that when you shift from a more standard American diet to a more whole food plant-based diet, your white blood cell counts can go down, your markers of inflammation go down, your C-reactive protein, SED rate, all these markers of inflammation that we have blood labs for actually going on a more plant-based diet. It's been shown to reduce those markers of inflammation. So we know, and it's also been shown to boost T cells and lymphocytes and antibody response. So like if you get a vaccine, if you go on a plant-based diet and then get a vaccine, it's been shown that you make more antibodies than if you didn't. And so we know it affects the immune system in a real general way. And so, we don't have data to say, okay, people that are it's too early. People that are on a more plant-based diet seem to get sick less COVID, less higher, lower mortality or lower, less likely to be hospitalized. We don't have any of that kind of data, but we know that, with going on a more plant-based diet, along with other lifestyle things, reducing stress and more sleep and exercise and not smoking and all those things are all going to be beneficial in general for fighting off a virus. And if you do get a virus, because we can't be 100% immune, but if we do get it, that we'll be less likely to have a complication or get us sick. So.
Excellent. And I want to make sure that people that are in Lane County, Lynn County, Douglas County, who would like to come to your classes, how do they find out about information on that?
Yeah, I have no problem giving out my email. You can give out my email, which is scwscott. So it's SCWSCOTT @AOL.com. It's still one of the old school AOL. Yeah.
Got mail.
You got mail. I have no problems. People, they can email me and I can add them to my group email list. I have 430, I think, so right now, people on my group email.
Well, and I have to give you credit for helping me to fill my Facebook group, because I went to your classes and then you posted about my Facebook group, and all of a sudden I had like an influx of hundreds of members. And, people can find you on the Facebook group, which is Plant-Based Eating for Health. And you just go to Facebook, put in Plant-Based Eating for Health, make sure you put that full thing. You'll get in there, and Scott's in there. And I know that, Scott, you answer questions because I tag you a lot. When there's a medical question, when it comes to mindset and really changing lifestyle, I love jumping on that, and I'll answer those questions. But when it comes to medical, you're the go-to guy. And I have to say that you actually were one of the reasons that I decided to get certified through Cornell University. I was sitting on the fence with it because it was a fair investment of not only money but time. And I asked you about that, and you said you felt that it would be a really good choice, that you had gotten that certification, 6 years ago?
Yeah, December 2015, I did that, yeah.
Wow, okay, yeah. So 5 years ahead of me, so that's awesome.
That was the first formal thing I did was that, so that was good.
Well, and I really enjoy doing it, and I thank you for encouraging me. And you also talk about the myths that go on with a plant-based protocol, because a lot of people, they're so afraid of giving up animal products and dairy products because we've been brainwashed to believe that we need these things. But I really would like to, if this is something you focus on, get a little bit into the whole issue of factory farming and the viruses that come out of that, but also the myths around protein, around vitamin deficiency. What can you tell us about protein, first of all?
Yeah. In fact, one of my classes, I totally focus it, even now that I have a 3-month 6-class series. One of the classes, because I feel it's so important, is nutritional myths and other popular diets, is what I labeled one of my classes. And I talk all about reductionism and holism. I don't know if you've got a chance to read T. Colin Campbell's book, Whole. That's a really good one.
Oh, I haven't read that one, Whole.
Really, yeah, Whole. It's really science heavy. So it's maybe not the best book for just the lay public because it is so kind of science heavy, but I recommend it to the PA students that come through my clinic, other medical providers, someone like yourself that's well educated on this at this point. I think you would be able to handle it okay. But I think what I try to teach my patients and people that come to my classes is the whole, and Dr. Greger has videos on reductionism and holism as well on his nutritionfacts.org site. And it's just, and you probably went to that class, I'm sure, the last when you were going to the classes, about how I talked about, that nutrition as a science is so reductionist, which is, what that means is we're focused on carbohydrate. What's the good carbs? What's the bad carbs? What am I getting enough protein? Am I getting enough fiber? And some of those things, we kind of fall into that trap. And it's not that those things aren't important and we don't want to pay attention to them. It just, you start to lose focus on what's really important, which is the holism, which is the food. And so every food has fat, protein, carbohydrate, micronutrients, things like that. So you look at a food and that's the components that it has, but what's really important is the food. So when someone says, well, I've got to cut carbs, well, are your carbs jelly beans or lima beans, right? So they're both primarily carbohydrate, but the most of the weight of a jelly bean is sugar, whereas most of the weight in a lima bean is micronutrients, fiber, fat, protein, the good carbohydrate, and water. And so it's a perfect package for our health. But anything that has calories is going to have protein. So I do talk about protein specifically, as far as, all the largest land mammals on the planet don't eat meat, they eat plants. And so if you get enough calories, you're always going to get enough protein. So people that are around me, my patients and stuff, they kind of, when they say the word protein, for me, it's like a 4-letter word. It's like scratching on the chalkboard, because it's like, well, who cares about protein? Because as long as you get enough,
right,
enough calories, you're going to get enough protein. And so there's, maybe 3% of the population that aren't getting enough calories, like in people in skilled nursing facilities, the really sick and elderly often aren't getting enough calories. So they probably are protein deficient because they're calorie deficient. But that's 3% of the population in the United States. 97% of the population in the United States is deficient in fiber. And again, that's reductionist, focusing on fiber. But what that really means is when you tell somebody that 97% of the population is fiber deficient, that doesn't mean you need to go out and buy Metamucil and put it in your orange juice. That means you need to eat plants, because only plants have fiber. And so instead of focusing on protein, we need to focus on eating more whole plant foods, because that's where the fiber is. And so that's kind of part of that. And I liken it to nutrition as a science. Is like, think of all the reductionists, all the fats, protein, carbohydrates, all the things I mentioned, those are the individual musical instruments in a symphony. But it takes all of those instruments to make a symphony, to make a beautiful concert, right? And so the whole concert, the whole symphony, is the holism. That's the beauty of nature, and the beauty of the science of nutrition. But we tend to focus on, in research and products, and we tend to kind of, essentially nutrition is kind of a marketing thing, and it's where it's a holistic science. We need the reductionism to figure out how things work and the mechanisms. And the reason I can regurgitate all these pros and cons of different foods is because of reductionism. I can talk all about TMAO and all the other things that are bad about eating an animal product, but that's because of reductionism that I have that knowledge. But really what's important with that is because of that, that's why you eat more plants and less animal products, or no animal products, if you want to be the healthiest you can be, reverse heart disease. So it's always kind of a balance of not ignoring the things, the myths and protein, because you got to educate people,
right,
but also trying to focus people back to what's really important. And it's the food, it's the package that's important.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned marketing, that a lot of why we eat the way we eat as a culture and a society is based on marketing. And a lot of people right now are glued to the news. But if you notice the commercials, they'll have a Wendy's burger or a McDonald's. Now it's not just one patty, it's 2 and then 3. And if you really want to go all out, get 4 with all the cheese and the bacon. And then the next commercial is something to get rid of heartburn or stomach acid or whatever it may be. And we have all these messages bombarding us that are convincing us that, yes, these fast food restaurants are a great idea with all the meat products, but then, well, when you have the impact of that, why don't you get the medication? Let's talk about the people that are using the fake meat, if you will, the Beyond Burgers, the Impossible Burgers, all Beyond Meats and Impossible Burgers. What's your take on that? Is that a healthier choice than meat? And if yes, why? And if not, why?
Yeah. So I think if you're looking at just from a health standpoint, I'd say it's no better because it's still highly processed. A lot of them are full of coconut oil, lots of saturated fat. So they're not health food. They're not a health food. They're not going to help you achieve your health goals, and they're not going to help you lose weight either. But are they better for the planet and better for the animals? Yes. And so I would be supportive of those things because only as a temporary measure. So if I have a patient that comes to me that says, well, I just can't. I'm not ready to go from my bacon double cheeseburger and my bacon and eggs to steamed kale. That's not going to happen. Oatmeal and steamed kale is not going to happen for me right now. But hey, could I, now I go to Wendy's or I go to Carl's Jr. or Burger King or whatever, and I get the Impossible Burger, and it's like, okay, well, that's a step in the right direction. So it's kind of like at least they're willing to make a change, and so I kind of group all those things together, like the vegan sausages and all the processed vegan foods basically are what we call methadone for a heroin addict, basically. So it's a way to kind of, okay, I'm not quite ready to go all the way in yet. I'm not ready to have my taste buds change that much, and I'm not really committed to making that big of a jump. That maybe that's an okay transition. But I try to tell people try to do that for as short of a time as possible, because it's not really likely not going to help you achieve your health goals. But is it a good stepping stone? I think from a global standpoint, I think it's a good sign, but sometimes it can be 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because a lot of people say, well, it's not healthy. It's like, well, yeah, it's not really healthy, but it's I think overall a step in the right direction.
Right. And speaking of global directions, what do you see happening in the healthcare industry right now with COVID-19? I know there's been some impact on your job. I know that just in general, there are changes that from day to day, we don't even know what to expect. So what are you seeing and what do you project?
Yeah. So at Oregon Medical Group, we're trying to, here in Eugene, trying to help lessen the spread in the community by encouraging phone consultations, phone appointments. And unfortunately, it's not reimbursing. It's only about 30% reimbursement from what a face-to-face visit is. So we're working on tele appointments. So using like an iPad or something like that to be face-to-face, which will reimburse the same as if you're not familiar with nutritionfacts.org. Actually, Dr. Michael Greger posted on there a lecture he gave back in 2008, so a long time ago, 12 years ago, about pandemics and viruses, and that most of them like influenza comes from birds, and so I think I'm hoping that Bill Gates, I don't know if you saw him, he was on CNN or something the other night. And he had given a lecture, a TED Talk about pandemics back in 2015, I believe it was. But
yes, it was.
When this is all said and done, we kind of realize that it's our desire to have dollar menu chicken is the reason that this virus exists and people are dying because of that. I mean, I know it's kind of it's a big jump for people to accept that or to think that, but it's really true. If we went back to, of course, for health reasons, this is, I'm not advocating for, everybody on the planet to be whole food plant-based.
I am.
Yeah, that would be great. But I guess because I've been in healthcare for 25 years and seen tens of thousands of patients, I'm a realist as well. Yeah, would that be better if everybody did? Absolutely. But trying to be realistic that if we could at least get rid of all the CAFOs, get rid of all the factory farming, go back to just having family farms. And yeah, if you ate some animal products for Easter and for Thanksgiving and maybe a couple other times a year, the rest of the time you ate plant-based, most people would probably be pretty healthy. Now, somebody that's already got heart disease, really advanced heart disease, and the patients I see every day, all day long, every day, they're a completely different deck of cards. So it's much easier to keep somebody healthy that's already healthy than when someone's really sick. So I tell that to my diabetic patients with diabetes that are on insulin is, hey, if you really want to get off this insulin and reverse this diabetes, you're going to, I would advocate for you to go 100% whole food plant-based, because that'll give you the best chance to heal your body and actually achieve your health goals. Now, if it's just somebody that's a little bit pre-diabetic like I was, and I could just make, kind of a slow transition and prevent me from ever getting diabetes, that would be obviously optimal. But I'm hoping that the silver lining from all of this is that we realize that if we could just get rid of all the factory farming and quit, basically producing animals to eat, it's not only going to be good for the environment, it's going to be good to prevent the next pandemic.
Right.
And all this is tied together. And kind of the irony is the, your dollar chicken, so your dollar menu chicken and burgers is the reason we're having the pandemic, and eating those foods is the most likely going to be the reason you're going to die from the virus. So it's kind of like a serendipity, so to speak. It's
right.
Nature is very cyclical and doesn't come without irony.
Well, you actually had posted a video from Dr. Greger a few days ago in the Facebook group, and I watched that. That kind of took me on a squirrel journey, if you will. But I ended up I'm in the middle of reading his book, Bird Flu Book, and you can get that at birdflubook.org. And it's he wrote it, I think, in 2005, and he predicted the pandemic that we're experiencing now. I mean, to a T, there are things that he wrote in there that you're going, this is so prophetic. And yet it's amazing how many people don't want to hear what the solution is. I was watching something on the current state of where we're going with the numbers, and I posted, it was one of the big leaders that every day does an update, and I posted on there, I said, why is nobody talking about where this actually comes from with factory farming and viral issues? And somebody goes, oh, one more thing that we have to worry about. And I said, actually, no. I said, if people would give up animal-based products, they wouldn't have one more thing to worry about. So how do you address that when somebody is so attached to holding on to their need, in their mind, their need to eat meat, that they're not even willing to listen to what the facts are? And that's what I love about nutritionfacts.org. There's so much great information. And we'll put all this in the show notes. So how do you address that with somebody who is angry about the fact that you're even talking about this?
Yeah, so sometimes I get patients where I used to be more, the first year or two I was doing this, I was really gung-ho, and just, some people would kind of view it as my way or the highway, and some people would put up a block and then, complain that, I was talking to them about their diet, whereas nobody would complain if no one complains about their doctor encouraging them to quit smoking every office visit. And so it's just a difference in culture. So it's so widely known that smoking is bad, and it's so socially acceptable in our culture to, oh, you shouldn't smoke, right? And so when a provider asks their patient, hey, how are you doing where are you at with maybe thinking about quitting smoking? Nobody tends to complain or get defensive about that, because everyone knows that, well, I know I should quit. Whereas when it's, hey, what about giving up the standard American diet, all the meat, the cheese, the eggs, the dairy, the oils, the processed junk, how about giving up that? It's like, what are you talking about? I mean, that's my life, that's my culture, that's my mom's recipes, my grandma's recipes. Food is so personal, and eating the standard American diet is so normal that trying to teach people to do what you and I are trying to teach people to do is so socially out in left field for most people. Mm-hmm. And so I've kind of transitioned to kind of meeting people where they are and just talk about the benefits, and not like to say, oh, you have to give up all this 100% right now. I just try to say, because a lot of times I'll have patients that know that, hey, I know I should give up my bacon double cheeseburger, but I really like fish. What about fish? And so it's kind of, I take every single food and give the risks and benefits with every food. And every food is like, well, is this food healthy? Well, compared to what? So like fish, for example, they'll say, well, I thought fish was healthy. Well, fish is healthy compared to bacon and sausage, but is fish healthy compared to any whole plant food? Absolutely not. And so I tell them, well, fish has some omega-3 healthy fats in it, but it also has saturated fat and cholesterol and methyl mercury and environmental pollutants, and 90% of the fish are gone. So so you can give them all the reasons why fish isn't a good choice, but it might be the better choice than what they were eating before. Or I have patients that they're hunters and they're gung-ho hunters, and I got them eating a whole food plant-based diet, except they still 2 or 3 times a month they have their elk or their venison, and because they enjoy it. And I always tell them, well, if you're eating it because you like the taste, well, at least that's the right reason to eat it, not because you think you need protein or you think it's healthy for you. No, because you could be more healthy because it's always a lost opportunity. So eating an animal product or something processed is a lost opportunity, something that would have been more health promoting. Right. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I try to meet people where they are. And the philosophy I learned a lot of that from was through self-experience, but also if you're familiar with from Forks Over Knives, Dr. Matthew Letterman and Alana Polday. They're the two doctors that were in the Forks Over Knives and they do a lot of they've done work with Whole Foods, and they have a lot of educational. They wrote the book with the Forks Over Knives book. Those two doctors are a married couple. They're both physicians, and Matthew Letterman is a doctor that has that philosophy too. And it really, as a provider myself, it really could really relate to it. And it's because and a lot of it is because you're trying to help the patient, and if you just say, hey, you got to do this 100% my way or the highway, right, so many people will just turn you off. And so it's always having to try to be as neutral as you can be. But you want to get them where you want them to go, because that's what's going to be best for their health, but they have to want to do it. And so I try to focus on what are their why reasons for changing, and then how to take it on a food by food basis to get them over to as much of a whole food plant-based diet as they can.
And I love that. And that's why I'm so grateful that I have you to refer people over to your classes, because I do tend to get impatient. It's like, for me, it's very black and white. And I know that it's important to meet people where they're at. So to be able to send them to your classes, and it's so amazing because I've been out in the Eugene area, and I remember one time this man came up to me and he was so excited to see me, and I'm like, who is this guy? Well, apparently I had met him at one of your classes when he was about 50 pounds heavier. I didn't even recognize him. And he pulls out his picture, shows me the before and after, and he said, you literally saved his life. And, I think that's what's so important about what you're doing and what I'm doing, is that it could save people's lives. And the more I learn about this, the more committed I am to it. That's why I started the podcast show. I want to be able to educate people and serve at the highest level. Speaking of which, again, I'm talking to Scott Wagnon, who is a physician assistant with Oregon Medical Group, and he's sharing a lot of nutritional information about plant-based eating. I encourage you, if you're in the Lane County, Lynn County, Douglas County, or even beyond that, you want to come in for one of his classes or all of his classes, we'll put up his email address. You can contact him. He'll put you on the distribution list. We're still trying to get him in the 21st century with a website, but that'll come. That'll definitely come. But yeah, it's like, give one little web address, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So for people who they really want to try this and they're looking for real simple steps, what would be 3 simple steps that somebody could take to get started?
Yeah, I think I always have people watch. So everyone that comes to me for the one-on-one appointments, I do an introduction appointment to kind of see what their living is like, married, kids, who does the cooking, kind of see what their life, get a snapshot of what their life is like, get what their health goals are. And then I usually have them watch Forks Over Knives, and now The Game Changers as well, both on Netflix, just to kind of get kind of a background and get some inspiration and whatnot. And then I have all kinds of educational materials, but I usually recommend, after you've watched one of those movies, then, there's lots of different plant-based books out there. You could read those. There's the on Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. There's, they have the the 21-day kickstart. There's the Engine 2 diet. There's lots of different kind of meal plans you could jump into, or your website is great too for that, because you have what your starter guide.
Mm-hmm.
So any kind of anything like that. I usually give patients a resources list with websites and cookbooks and all kinds of things. So yeah, I would start there. Lots of different websites and things just to kind of see what it's about. And then once you've kind of got that inspiration and you want to, if you're more cerebral and want to see the kind of the science for yourself, then I usually recommend people go to the nutritionfacts.org. And another good resource is just to do the Daily Dozen is a good way for someone to start Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. That's the free app, because even if they aren't necessarily ready to give up their standard American diet, their standard American disease and standard American diet with all the animal products and processed foods, if they just start trying to do the Daily Dozen, adding in more of the whole plant foods, and it tends to crowd out the other stuff. And so that's always a good way to go. But, I have patients that are gung-ho and they want to jump in head first, and then I give them all kinds of information.
Excellent. So when's the book coming out?
Yeah. I just stand on the shoulders of everybody else. And, and so I feel like I've been doing this for 7 years, and I got a lot of thousands of hours into this and lecturing and everything else. I feel like my plate's already pretty full. I don't know if I have time or the desire to write a book, because I don't know if I have anything that's new. I just feel like I regurgitate kind of what I've learned from everybody else. But obviously I learn my own stuff. But.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I work with a lot of authors, and that's often what I hear from people is, well, I don't have anything new to say. But you think about when somebody has an interest in something, let's say it's remodeling their home, they're going to go and get every book on remodeling that they can find, or if it's eating, they're going to get every book on that protocol that they can. So, I look forward to the day that you say, I'm working on that book now. But Scott, this has been delightful. Thank you so much. You've shared a wealth of information. And again, I'm speaking with Scott Wagnon from Eugene, Oregon, with Oregon Medical Group, and we've got a lot of great nutritional information he shared, a lot of facts, a lot of information that I encourage you, do your research and take that first step. Try it for 7 days and see what happens, and especially in light of what's going on with COVID-19, now more than ever, you have to take care of your health. So in closing, Scott, is there anything else you'd like to share with people?
I think just, change is really difficult. And, the studies show that fear is a good motivator to change, but it's only a short-term motivator, anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks, maybe up to 6 months. But the thing that's been shown to sustain change is what Dr. Dean Ornish says is the joy of living, feeling good, feeling well. So those are the reasons that will make change last. And that it's never give up on somebody. I mean, a lot of the challenges I see with patients is their spouse isn't supportive, or other family isn't supportive, or friends aren't supportive. And that could be a real challenge. I mean, my own wife, it took 3 years before she came around. So, I mean, as much as she had the encyclopedia living with her, but maybe that was a negative thing because I was, kind of in her face all the time.
Right.
And so it took her 3 years before she finally made the changes, and she's lost 80 pounds now.
That's amazing.
And she's a completely different person. So, and my mom eats this way, but my dad doesn't. So, it's kind of like, it can be, there's no guarantees. And I just, as a provider and a human being, I don't judge anybody. It's like, cause sometimes I have patients that, wow, this patient will really change. This will be easy because they already have a vegan family member, or they're already vegetarian already. There won't be many hurdles for this person. This person will rock it. And then they struggle and they don't do well. Mm. And I have patients, and this really blew my wife Angela away. She helps me with the classes, and she's actually a very active participant in the classes and speaks at the classes a lot. And she's told me this before, like how, she'll see this grizzled old guy, this overweight grizzled old guy with lots of medical conditions. Oh man, there's no way this guy's going to do this. How's he going to adopt something like this? And it's like that patient, lost 50 pounds, 80 pounds. You saved my life, could be a different changed person. And so always give everybody the benefit of the doubt and offer it to everybody. And and you have to adapt the way you present it to people, but everyone deserves the possibility or the right to be healthy and happy. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Scott, and thank you all for listening in. This is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health, encouraging you, go out, be healthy, live fully, and enjoy the day.
Thank you.
Thank you for your commitment to an ethical life through plant-based food choices. The kind of choices that are kind to your body, the environment, and most of all, animals. Be sure to leave a review and rating of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show.